Palkia EX is another new top deck, packing 150 damage and a board wipe on turn 2. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to play Palkia EX to its peak, including my deck list, combos, matchups, and counters. With the beautiful new immersive art, the legendary ruler of space is here to play. Without further ado, let's go. Let's start off with the deck list I run. Our first Pokemon in our star card is Palkia EX. Palkia is a 150 health basic water EX. The first is Slash, costing 1 water energy to deal 30 damage. This is relevant as early game poke, and if you go first and then flip one heads with Misty on Palkia, you have a 50% chance to start poking before your opponent can even move. The kicker is its 4 cost attack, Dimensional Storm. Costing 4 energy, it deals 150 damage to your opponent's active and 20 damage to each of their opponent's benched. However, as a cost, you have to discard 3 water energy from the Palkia. This Dimensional Storm can one-shot a lot of the meta Pokemon and sets us up for later plays like Cyrus. So the goal of our deck is to get Dimensional Storm off as fast as possible and as much as possible. Next up is Vaporeon from Mythical Island. It evolves from Eevee and has the ability Watch Out. This lets you move any amount of your water energy from your benched water Pokemon to your active water Pokemon. Usually this is going to be moving from everyone else onto Palkia. While we mostly use Vaporeon for its ability, it also has a 3 cost attack Wave Splash. It deals a solid 60 damage, and we can use it if our Palkia dies, we don't hit Palkia, or if our Palkia is super low and we leave out. Vaporeon evolves from Eevee. You can play any Eevee from this deck. There are a bunch of variants. I prefer the Continuous Steps variants from Mythical Island. You flip a coin until you get tails, and then the attack deals 20 damage for each heads, so you're able to high roll an infinite amount of damage or hit 0 at all. Usually you're not attacking with Eevee anyway, so the pick isn't really relevant. Our last Pokemon is Manaphy, a 50 HP water basic. It has the 1 cost attack Oceanic Gift. This lets you choose up to 2 of your bench Pokemon and then will generate 1 water energy for each. So we're going to use Manaphy on turn 1 to ramp up our bench, and then evolve into Vaporeon and use its ability to move all of the water energy onto Palkia. And then Palkia with enough energy can start dropping Dimensional Storms. The rest of our cards all buff a Palkia or help us find our combo faster. We run 2 Pokeballs who search for a random basic. Our basics are Palkia, Eevee, and Manaphy with 2 copies of each. Next, I like to run 1 Pokemon Communication. It makes the deck a lot more consistent. You get to choose 1 Pokemon in your hand and switch it with a random Pokemon in your deck. So if you have any duplicates of Manaphy, Eevee, or Vaporeon, you can swap into any random one from your deck, and you're going to hope that you get the piece you're missing. You don't usually want any dupe except Palkia. Double Palkia on the bench can be a very good late game play. Next, I like to run 2 Giant Capes. Giant Cape is a Pokemon tool which you can attach to a Pokemon, and then the Pokemon Giant Cape is attacked to gets 20 HP. This gets added to the max, so Palkia goes up to 170 HP. This brings Palkia up to 170 HP, making it able to survive Mew's genome hacking, Palkia EX itself, Mewtwo, and many other Pokemon. It's effectively a better potion because you can use it preemptively. Next up, we got 7 supporters, starting off with Misty, the classic for your water deck. You can choose one of your water Pokemon and then flip a coin until you get tails. For each heads, generate a water energy onto the Pokemon. So this can be ridiculous, or it can also be a waste of a supporter. You can even be playing Palkia on the first turn and then flip 4 heads in a row, and then you can Dimensional Storm on turn 1, often ending the game instantly. You can always gamble for this, and even if you hit 1 heads and get the 30 damage poke, that's still pretty good. But I think the much better application is to use it on Manaphy on your first turn if you draw Misty and you go first. Being able to get that ramp off is super strong on the first turn, and you're going to be way ahead of your opponent if you can get it off. But to do that, you're going to have to hit the 50% chance with Misty. Eventually it's okay to Misty anyone, as Vaporeon can move the water energy around. You usually just want to do it on Palkia. So if it's the first turn, do it on Manaphy. If it's not the first turn, do it on Palkia. I run 1 copy of Cyrus. Cyrus is a new supporter in STSD. He allows you to switch in one of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has damage on it into the active slot. So with Serena, the opponent gets to choose which Pokemon they swap in, but with Cyrus, you get to pick which one gets swapped in, just as long as they have damage dealt on them. This either happens when they're on the bench, when Dialga uses Dimensional Storm and they took 20 damage, or if they were active and then retreated away. Cyrus will help you secure key points on weak and low HP Pokemon, especially after using Dimensional Storm. Some people like to run 2. I only run 1 because I feel like it's a bit of overkill, as if you're already able to get Dimensional Storm off, you're probably pretty well off in the game. But there are definitely situations where Cyrus can clutch, especially if you're only able to get 1 Storm off. In that case, you might be moving towards Slashes and then ending off with a Vaporeon attack instead of going for a second Storm. Next up, I like to run 2 Leafs. Leaf makes the retreat cost of your active 2 less for that turn. This lets you retreat away Manaphy so you can keep the energy and then use Dimensional Storm on turn 2. As long as you have Vaporeon and then put Palkia in the active spot, you can move the energy from Manaphy. Manaphy will have generated 2 energy, and then you'll have 1 energy for your turn. That's 4, just enough for a Dimensional Storm. So Leaf or X-Speed is key to doing that on the second turn. We run Leaf because Palkia EX and Vaporeon both have a 2 retreat cost. We want to save as much energy as we can, as we want to get to Dimensional Storm twice. Finally, as we should run in every deck, 2 Professor's Researches to help us draw. So a big question for this deck is around Mana Fee. We're going to ask how many times should I use Oceanic Gift before I move to Palkia, and then when should we use our Dimensional Storms? Basically, you should tailor how many gifts you can use based on the situation in your opponent's deck. Simply enough, if you open with all your combo pieces and a leaf, and you see an opportunity for a turn 2 storm, you should take it if you're able to wipe out key pieces for your opponent. This is stuff like evolution pieces and EXs like Dialga, Palkia, and Mewtwo. If it scores you 2 points at a time or is a high point of power for their deck, you should probably do it. If it's a low HP Pokemon or a tanky Pokemon, you should think twice. They're going to allow you to get another Oceanic Gift off by not having enough damage to kill Mana Fee next turn. Most of the times you're going to want to go for at least 2 Oceanic Gifts. This gives you enough for 2 Dimensional Storms over 2 or 3 turns, depending on your luck with Misty and Leafs. 1 storm a lot of the time isn't enough to win games, but 2 storms usually is. Make sure you don't waste your storms on super low HP Pokemon, but don't be afraid to use them too on stuff like Druddigons. If you're going to kill a tank though with a Dimensional Storm, make sure you have another one in the pocket to kill their sweeper or ace monster. So if you're going against something like Stall Druddigon, usually try to use Mana Fee twice. If they have something like Rocky Helmet or the Druddigon passive, Mana Fee doesn't deal damage, so it won't proc that. So then Mana Fee won't take any damage, you don't have to worry about that. And if you get super lucky with Misty, you can push for a super high tempo, more than you usually could. There are times when you just have so much energy that you can use storms whenever, because they're going to have to start putting in pieces that they don't want to be exposed. And even if they get them scaled up, they're going to be so low HP, they can kill them with pretty much any attack. So just talking briefly about matchups, I'm going to use Limitless TCG, a site for tournaments. We're going to take a look at the Day Pocket Weekly 14. This is the first Day weekly tournament for Space-Time Smackdown, and this one had over 1,000 players play on the first day. So if we go to the metagame tab here, we can see the most played decks. We see Palkia EX and Vaporeon have a 51% win rate, 52% almost, so positive is pretty good. Given the fact that it has the highest play rate in the tournament right now, this is a really good stat. You can see it's a little lower than the Gyarados deck, but given that it has 162 games played, whereas Gyarados only has 70, I feel like these numbers are just about even. In a tournament setting, the winning or losing of a Palkia EX deck is going to be pretty based on luck. Of course, with every deck, it's the cards you draw, the cards you open with, but also Misty can give you some really hard wins where you shouldn't get them. And of course, the highest win rate deck with just 6 plays less is the Darkrai EX Magnezone deck. Just super oppressive, and even the Magnezone has an electric type advantage over you on Palkia. I really do think this matchup isn't all losing. I think it can go either way, especially if you get lucky with Misty. You can rampage through their front line. If they're playing around a Druddigon too greedily, they're going to be able to get 2 or even 3 Mana Fee charges off, and then you'll be able to one-shot everyone with the Palkia. But you have to always watch their Magnezone in the backline, because the Magnezone is threatening you with 130 damage. If you don't have Cape, they can one-shot you with the Darkrai Dark Energy plus the Magnezone swap in. You know, even a Magneton starting with 1 electric energy can evolve into a Magnezone that can kill you. And if they have a Leaf or Next Speed, they can swap in really quickly using the Magneton combo. So that's a super scary card in any matchup against Magnezone. I think 2 Cyruses is pretty essential if you know you're going to be playing against a bunch of Darkrai and Magnezone. But on random play, on random matches, I think I think Cyrus is less essential. And then you're going to be more incentivized to push faster tempo here, because you can mark the Magnezone, Magneton, the battery with the Cyrus. You might end up playing a Dimensional Storm early and then switching into Vaporeon to get a kill off on a Magnezone or Magneton. Most of the wins are going to come from luck from Misty or better draws than the opponent. Charizard EX, Moltres EX. So Moltres has the same idea as you with Mana Fee. It depends a bit on luck on how fast they get their Moltres ramp, but I feel like Palkia has a pretty good matchup against the Charizard. The only thing is that if they do get the Charizard off, you can't one-shot it with the Palkia. Charizard has 180 health, so you're going to want to tempo pretty hard here. You can one-shot the Moltres, and then hopefully you're going to tag some with the Cyrus, and then you can swipe them with the Vaporeon or another Palkia. It's going to be pretty essential that you have the second Palkia to play around, because your first Palkia is probably going to get one-shot by Charizard. I consider this a winning matchup. You even have the type advantage for Poke as well. That makes Vaporeon's attack stronger, that makes the Slash stronger, and Vaporeon's attack stronger. So you can play some different strategies that you might not be able to against a non-fire deck. We've got Darkrai, so this matchup can one-shot your Mana Fee super fast. Be on the lookout for that. You're going to be punished for trying to greed too hard with Mana Fee, so oftentimes you want to just play around getting water onto Palkia as fast as possible. Palkia is tanky enough to survive 2 hits from the Weavile Darkrai combo, and surviving 2 hits usually lets you kill off the opponents. Executor and Celebi. So Celebi, I think, has a pretty bad matchup into Palkia. Executor is pretty good because it can tank a Palkia one-shot, I feel like an Executive Mega might be harder for Palkia than Celebi is. Palkia can just one piece the Celebi. Also, Celebi can attack until 2 energy. We're gonna see that in one of the replays I look at after this section. Executor EX can one-shot the Manaphy if they play first, and then on their second turn they play an energy on the Executor EX and evolve it. But Celebi needs the stage 2 ramp from Superior to overpass you. So I think by the time they get a Celebi in their main slots and a stage 2 ramp onto the Superior, I think you're good to go with 2 Manaphy charges. You're going to be able to one-shot a Celebi with Dimensional Storm right off the bat. Feel free to use Manaphy or Eevee to bait out that attack. So I feel like this is a pretty winning matchup. The Gyarados matchup, so a lot of this goes down to Misty, of course, but if you guys are both equally lucky, they don't really have poke other than the Greninja stars, unless they use Frogadier or Froakie to poke down your Manaphy and score a kill there, but then they're wasting energy that they could be placing onto the Gyarados, and they don't have the Vaporeon to swap the energy around like we do. In a matchup of even luck, I give this one to Palkia most of the time. Neither Pokemon can one-shot each other. Gyarados deals 140 to our 150, we deal 150 to their 180, and then we have Cyrus to kill the Gyarados after that. However, they can one-shot us with the Greninja combo or Druddigon chip, so be careful about that. Overall, then running Druddigon gives us the opportunity to ramp up with Manaphy twice, and then the Greninja poke is just not fast enough compared to for that threat of Darkrai Magnezone. Dialga and Melmetal, I think this is a pretty hard winning matchup for Palkia, simply because Dialga needs 2 turns to start ramping, whereas we can start ramping from turn 1 or turn 2. Dialga EX needs 2 turns to start ramping, and then it also needs to swap into Melmetal, whether that's they get lucky with an X speed or a Leaf, or they burn the 2 energy they expended. By the time they swap in Melmetal, we can just one-shot it with Dimensional Storm, and all is good. I think with pretty okay luck, given that we have our combo, we're going to win this matchup every time. Mega is going to be a little harder than Melmetal, but not by much. We can still one-shot the Mega with Palkia. So in an even state of luck, I think we're going to win. Pikachu EX and Zebstrika, or Pikachu EX and Pachirisu EX, these are super aggressive variants. I think the Pachirisu EX variant is a lot better now. It just gives you a much higher chance to deal that much damage. And then we're also weak to the electric. So 2 attacks from basically any electric Pokemon they have is going to kill our Palkia off. One thing to note here is that some of the lists use Rotom, which is a 1 energy attack Pokemon. It deals 20 damage, but it deals 50 more if you have a Pokemon tool attached. So if you attach a cape to your Manaphy, that's going to one-shot your Manaphy. But if you don't attach a cape, it wouldn't one-shot, it would go to only 10 health. Be on the lookout for that. Don't use your cape blindly on the Manaphy, if you see an electric symbol especially. I definitely put this in losing because of their high tempo. We're probably not going to get off 2 Manaphy charges pretty often. They can 2-shot our Palkia at any time. We're kind of relying on luck with Misty here to be able to get 2 Dimensional Storms off. That will win us the game because Pikachu, Pachirisu, and Zapdos are always going to be low 150 health, but it might be a little luck-based. Starmie matchups, Starmie Articuno, stuff like that. I think we win into Starmie and Articuno on the same luck. Starmie requires 2 energy to attack. We can usually get off 2 Manaphys unless we're lucky with Misty. But then in the same vein, if we're lucky with Misty, we're just going to win the game faster than them. And then Infernape is super aggressive, but they don't have enough damage to one-shot Palkia. I think this is a hard winning matchup because of the type advantage we have as well. Infernape EX only has 170 health, so 1 Dimensional Storm plus the water weakness is going to one-shot it. Darkrai Weezing, I think we're a bit too fast for that deck. That deck lets us ramp up way too much with Manaphys. You're going to be able to get 2 or even 3 Manaphys off. Rampardos, Lucario, they're going to need to find and be really lucky with their fossil hits for Rampardos to clear through our deck fast enough. Rampardos can one-shot us with the 130 damage head smash plus the Lucario bonus if we don't have a cape. And that only costs them 1 energy, so they'll have something else built up in the backline. But they're going to have to find a fossil and 2 evolutions, so by the time they do that on a pretty average luck, then we're going to have our Manaphy charges. We're going to be able to one-shot the Rampardos. Or we're going to be able to tag them with a different Dimensional Storm and then Cyrus in the Rampardos, forcing out a win for us. It just takes them a lot of resources to find all the evolutions there, so us being able to end that pretty quickly or having a guaranteed end that with Cyrus is pretty good for us. Last one I'll cover is Gallade. I don't think Gallade is that good right now in general. The thing with Gallade against Palkia is that Palkia is going to discard its own energy. It's going to discard 3. And we can just pick and choose how much energy we funnel over with Vaporeon. You can store the other ones if you Misty the Vaporeon. You don't have to Misty the Palkia itself. If you have Vaporeon, you can just pick and choose when you want to transfer over the energy, which means that Gallade is only get 20 extra damage from the energy from its energized blade. So Gallade is never going to one-shot us even with Lucario. Finding Gallade EX is pretty slow, even if it's only a 2-cost attack. And then by the time they have Gallade and Lucarios in their deck, they have not that many slots to play stuff that might threaten us early, like a Mankey or Hitmonchan. Even if they do hit it, we're probably going to get 1 Manaphy charge off anyway. And by the time they find Gallade EX and can put in the active slot, we can probably get 2 dimensional charges off. There's other stuff like Dialga EX, Mew, Pidgeot, and Licky Licky, but I think the same thing applies to the other Dialga matchup. That just allows us to ramp way too much. Bastiodon as well, stuff like that. Most decks that run a tank are pretty easy wins for us because we can get off as many of the charges as we want, and then we can just play through 3 Dimensional Storms in a row even. The one exception is the Darkrai deck because of Magnezone. Magnezone plus Darkrai can one-shot us anytime, so that is a huge threat to us. But yeah, I mean, solid tournament performance from this deck. 52% win rate as the highest played deck in the game in the tournament is pretty good. You know, if you sort by win rate and then scroll down, take out the obvious outliers that only have like 1 or 3 people running the decks. You see Darkrai EX at 60%, which is just ridiculous. But if you scroll down, you got Darkrai Greninja. Palkia is up here with Articuno. Another variant you can play, but that's pretty luck-based on Misty. They probably just got really lucky with the Misty flips. Exeggutor EX is a really good matchup into the Darkrai. That's why it's performing well here. Pikachu Pachirisu beats us. Pikachu Zapdos as well. And then we got our Palkia and Vaporeon. Really good sample size for us to get a 52% win rate. Not bad at all. Definitely one of the top 3, if not the second best deck in the game. And the random play-wise, you're not going to run into nearly as many Magnezones, so I think Palkia is even stronger. It really is just the Magnezone giving us a tough time. But yeah, on to the replays. Here's a matchup into Celebi. So we placed down Manaphy and Eevee. We got a Pokeball here as well, looking for Palkia. End up missing. We got a Pokecom looking for Palkia or Vaporeon here. We get the Vaporeon, but we need our Palkia as soon as possible. We use our Misty and we hit 1, so we can use Oceanic Gift on our first turn, which is way ahead of tempo. And then we can attach to Water Energy to the backline. They hit Snivy. I'm fine with playing Manaphy here. I'm not worried about it at all because most grass decks can't kill from 50 at all. If they're running like a Farfetch'd plus Giovanni, they might be able to do that, but no one's doing that. Now, if you went second, they can kill on their second turn after evolving into Execute EX, but since I'm first here, I'm not worried about it. So I hard run to Palkia, super lucky. We find our Vaporeon, and then I feel like I'm here to, and I feel like in this spot I'm free to Oceanic Gift again. So my reasoning is that eventually Celebi X could flip 2 tails, right, and then Manaphy would be fine. But eventually Celebi is gonna kill this Manaphy, and once Manaphy dies, I'm okay with putting Palkia EX in, right? The Celebi EX will hit for at most, because the Celebi EX will only have 3 energy the next turn after that. So they do end up evolving to Superior, and they hit 1 heads, killing off for Manaphy. We lose a point for that. So here I just put in Palkia to swing for the energy tempo because they've already committed 2 energy to the Celebi on active. If I push for a kill here, they're going to lose basically 2 turns of energy there. And if they get Superior, they can hit us for 100 on the next turn max, but that's not going to kill us, right? And then we have 2 energy left on the bench, so we got 3 total next turn. And then we got 3 energy left because 6 minus 3. And the next turn we'll have our 4th energy, so the game is pretty much a wrap unless they get a Sabrina off, which will force us to either hit Leaf or X-Speed or use our cost energy for Retreat. They don't have it, so we can just Dimensional Storm next turn for game. I don't know why it takes me so long to do that. I guess I just didn't see it this time, but that was a kill there. But yeah, only the dragging out the inevitable there. Get the win against Celebi EX. Alright, here's another replay against a viewer. Do viewer games once in a while. If you're on stream and you catch me, you can drop a comment or join our Discord and then queue up for a game with me. All decks are welcome. We open with Manaphy and Palkia in our hand, as well as Pokeball, Pokecom, and Giant Cape. And we're against a Fighting Toolkit kind of deck. With they end up opening with Marshadow, which isn't too great for them, because you want to open with Marshadow on the bench, so pretty unlucky start. But they get their Skull Fossils, so they're playing around Ramparados. Now we to go. We draw into Vaporeon. and then Pokeball into Eevee, which is amazing. We have everything we need. Don't need to use the Pokecom. Oceanic Gift onto Palkia and Eevee. Simple enough. First turn play. They're going to Pokeball and then place down a Riolu and a Marshadow with 1 energy. So Marshadow is going to deal 40 damage, but if they get a Lucario down, it's going to get buffed by 20 up to 60, one-shotting our Manaphy. Also, if they get a Giovanni off, it's going to one-shot our Manaphy. So we have to decide whether or not to use Manaphy again or to swap in and let Manaphy live. If we do that, we're not going to be able to Dimensional Storm now because we don't have an X speed, but we will be able to do it next turn. So I evolve into Vaporeon, Pokeball, doesn't matter, but at this point I decide to, after a bit of thinking, I decide to attach to Palkia and then Oceanic Gift again. So it's pretty likely that I get one shot here, but my reasoning is that against fighting decks, especially Gyarados or Imperados, they have a pretty tanky, Imperados is pretty tanky, right? So I want to have the 2 different Dimensional Storms in my back pocket, as well as the fact that they have a Marshadow with 1 energy already on the forefront. They've already expended 2 energy. If they hit me here, they already expended 2 energy on Marshadow. So if I want to, so I feel like Oceanic Gifting twice here is gonna send me super far ahead in the mid and late game. So I feel like Oceanic Gifting again here is gonna send me super far ahead in the mid and late game. Whereas Imperados is going to deal a ton of damage to us if they hit it, but it's not going to be enough where we can't get 2 Dimensional Storms off. And then Marshadow, especially in the front, isn't really a priority target for me to want to Dimensional Storm as soon as possible. I'm not really worried about losing a score because of Manaphy dropping here, because I already have the Palkia EX with the water energy set up. In the future though, we are at risk of getting something like Ramparados with the Sabrina onto Vaporeon. So we have to watch out for that as well. So you have to watch out for that, but that's still going to leave us at 1 point left, which can just be our Palkia EX. So they play Lucario, and they end up one-shotting our Manaphy there. And then we put in the Palkia EX and the Cape, so we're at 170 health. Then we use our Dimensional Storm here. We have 4 energy. We had 6 energy overall, and then we used 3. So we can immediately Dimensional Storm again next turn. Seems like they don't have their Imperados quite yet, so they end up swapping in the Granados to poke. And we just wipe the floor here with another Dimensional Storm. They place in their second Skull Fossil and hit the Concede. So this just goes to show the speed at which Palkia can take over games, especially against stuff like, especially against stage 2 decks, especially against stage 2 evolution decks. The amount of ramp Manaphy gets is often too high for a lot of decks that want to stall out for evolutions. And we didn't even get a Misty this time. If we got a Misty, it might be even faster. Alright, here's another replay. We load in with Manaphy, Misty, and Eevee, and we see we're against a Dark matchup. They open with Spiritomb, pretty standard for a Dark deck. Spiritomb can be played for the Cyrus and the Weevil bonus. So we draw into 2 Eevees, and we got a Misty. Honestly, here I should probably just Misty first, and then attach the energy, but we end up having 4 energy on Manaphy. I'm fine with putting this all in Manaphy because, 1, I can use it to retreat next turn if I do end up hard drawing into Palkia plus Vaporeon from like a Professor's Research. But 2, I'm not in any danger of getting one-shot by a Spiritomb here. But now I'm in the danger of getting Cyrused. So we do end up hard drawing into Palkia and Vaporeon. Perfect. Use the retreat cost, and then Vaporeon is going to move all the energy over to Palkia. In hindsight, probably should have just put... Well, the thing is, like, we can't Misty our backline, right? Because Misty can only be used on water Pokemon, so we have to use the water energy on Manaphy there. And since we know we're not going to get one shot by Spiritomb yet next turn, we're really hoping for a Vaporeon so we can move that energy off the Manaphy as soon as possible. Manaphy's going to get one shot, but Vaporeon won't. It'll get 2 hit. We end up getting super lucky and getting Palkia anyway, and then that's going to be an instant concede. Here's a replay against a Mewtwo deck. We open with Palkia EX. So we're just gonna play Palkia in the front. And they have Jinx. See what they do. They drop a Pokeball into Mewtwo EX, and we're going second here, so we can attack. We can attach an energy and poke with the slash. No Giant Cape. I have an option to Sabrina here to start poking the Mewtwo as soon as possible, but I want them to use have to use their next speed or leaf here to be able to attack. And I know that both the Pokemon have 2 energy attacks, so I'm good for the next turn. Also, if I slash on a Jinx twice and then they don't heal it, a Dimensional Storm is going to kill it on the bench. So draw to nothing with my research. That's fine. We're just going to stack up Palkia EX. They don't draw into Ralts, so they don't draw into Ralts here, so I know I'm going to be fine for a while. I'm not going to get hit by the side drive for a bit. We do get red carded with that many cards, which really sucks, but we draw into 2 Misties, which is really good for us there. They place a Ghastly on the bench, so I think they're just playing like Mewtwo, Gengar, some variant like that. Not the most powerful. We get our Eevee, so we can start evolving on the bench, but at this point we have 2 Misties in hand. Hoping we get a heads here. We get 4 heads here. It is what it is. That's just how it goes. So we're free to Dimensional Storm twice in a row, and that's just gonna end the game there. They can swap in the Ghastly here, but if we get a Sabrina, we're instantly in the game with the Dimensional Storm and the kill on the Ghastly as well. We already have a point. So they end up Sabrinaing, forcing us to use energy next turn to retreat, but we already have 4 on Palkia, so we're good to go. Just going to swap out and then run the Dimensional Storm on the Mewtwo there and win the game there. So overall, I think this matchup is really good against Mewtwo. They have to get super lucky with Gardevoir to catch it to our tempo. Now, this is given that we also get lucky enough to hit our pieces, but we have Pokecolumns to solve that, we have Pokeballs to solve that. Whereas Mewtwo has Mythical Slab to solve it, but they always take up to the stage 2 evolution, right? To get that power spike, whereas we can actually push a Dimensional Storm on... If we're super lucky, we can start outputting damage super fast and beating out the tempo of Mewtwo. And then Mewtwo and Palkia are always Mewtwo and Palkia have enough damage to one-shot each other, but the poke from stuff like Slash, a second Mewtwo's Dimensional Storm, is going to give you the upper hand against Mewtwo, whereas Mewtwo only pokes with itself, really, and maybe a Mew EX. And that poke is going to clear out each of your Giant Capes. So overall, I think the matchup against Mewtwo is pretty good. Here we got another replay against a Rampardos deck, I believe. So they open Chatot to search out the Fossil evolution line. We Pokeball into our Palkia, which is pretty lucky, and we find Manaphy as well. Miss the Misty, unfortunately. So I decide whether or not to just put the water on Eevee here so we can swap it out next turn if I want to play Manaphy as well, but I'm just stacking the energy on Palkia because I see they're playing Mimic, so their game plan is going to be pretty slow. And they don't even use Mimic here because of my hand count. So they're going to have to either expend an X speed or a leaf or an energy on the Chatot. So I feel like I'm going to just stack on the back line. If I had X speed, maybe I'd play towards Manaphy. So they swap into Cranidos and one-shot our Eevee. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, well, I have a Manaphy and an Eevee on my bench, and I have 2 energy on Palkia, so if Manaphy dies next turn, I'm going to be at 3 energy, and then next turn I'm going to be at 3 energy, and then if Manaphy dies, I can swap in Palkia with 4, and then Dimensional Storm away the Rampardos or Cranidos that comes out. And that will put us in a pretty winning position against this opponent because they're playing around the Fossil evolution, and they've already expended a lot of resources into that. So I can play a Manaphy and get away with an Oceanic Gift because I'm sacrificing it anyway. No point in using Cape. So they end up just swapping out Cranidos because they don't want their Cranidos to get one shot here. They're looking for the Rampardos to live, so they swap in the Chatot. And then here, I'm free to, first of all, Cape my Pokemon, but then I'm free to just use Oceanic Gift again because they swapped out. And being able to scale this much and have this much water energy in the backline at my disposal is super strong. I draw to Misty, and now at this point I have 8 energy plus anything that Misty might give me, so I use the Sabrina to bait out one of their Pokemon. I know they're going to swap in the Fossil because they want to keep Lucario and Rampardos alive as much as possible. Swapping out the Fossil prevents them from evolving into another Fossil line and potentially a tankier Pokemon that might tank the Dimensional Storm poke damage from the bench. So forcing, I don't mind using a Sabrina there because we already have the Cyrus, so we can just Cyrus the Rampardos next turn, and usually that ends the game. They're gonna swap in the Rampardos because it only costs 1 energy, so they can swing for 130 plus the 20 from Lucario, but we have the Giant Cape, which helps us survive. Otherwise, we would have lost the game there. Misty again, we don't need to. It's not necessary. And then they're going to concede here because they don't have anything in their deck that can swing for 1 energy on the next turn. Because Cranidos comes from a Fossil, and they already have an energy on the Chatot. If they had something like a Dawn, they could Dawn the energy from Chatot onto Lucario and then swing there. But that's going to be another win against Fighting. Here's a matchup against Dialga. So they open with Dialga and Poniard in the back. We open with Manaphy and draw into Palkia with the Professor Research. We only have 1 Pokemon on the bench, unfortunately, so we can only get 1 energy from Oceanic Gift, but they're playing Dialga EX, they're playing Drotagon. I know they're going to take a while to ramp up, so I'm totally cool with playing, with being behind here. Fortunately, we draw into another quarter and we missed our Misty, so not great for us, but we can just sit here on Palkia. And the next turn, we can retreat in to one-shot the Dialga here if they don't swap it out. So they end up swapping out for Drotagon, and what I can do is I can swap in to pressure, but I see them swapping in Drotagon as a huge flag for me that I can stall more and generate more energy in the backline. Dialga is a heavily ramping deck that eventually, once it gets started, it can ramp up a bunch of energy for the late game. So I want to match that because they already expended 2 energy on the Dialga EX. If they used a Leaf, for example, then maybe I change my game plan here. Maybe I want to push a lot faster because they don't really have anything terribly strong to buff up with the Dialga. I mean, they have a B-Sharp, but it only deals 70 damage. If they had something like a Yanmega or a Licky Licky, I would be a little more scared. But basically, if they had the energy left, then I want to push faster to try to kill off the Dialga as fast as possible to lose their tempo energy. But since they use their energy to retreat, I feel free to stack up my Palkia with energy so that by the time their Dialga can ramp up something else, I'll have 3-dimensional storms ready to use and one-shot their entire team. So from here on out, we got our Vaporeon as well, which is not necessary now. And now I decide to just push because I have enough energy to one-shot 2 Pokemon. But the bigger reason I do this is because I have Cyrus in my hand. So I use Dimensional Storm to tag the Dialga. I can simply just Cyrus in the Dialga, forcing it in, and since it's worth 2 points, I could end the game here with 1 Dimensional Storm. That's a GG. Last up, we got a water matchup against Staryu. Manaphy, Eevee on the field. We got a Vaporeon in hand, so our combo's gonna be good. We end up Pokeballing into Palkia, which is huge for us, and then Oceanic Gift, simple stuff. On the next turn, we can look for a kill, or we can look to ramp more. They don't have anything, they only have a Staryu. Pretty unlucky for them, so we just move our energy, Dimensional Storm in. We don't have an X speed or Leaf, so we actually do have to play the Misty. We hit 5 energy here somehow off Misty. Don't even need to play the second one, just in the game here. GG's. Alright, so here's a game where I'm actually playing a Darkrai variant, Darkrai Weezing. I already put out the video for Darkrai Weavile, and I know that Darkrai Magneton is tearing up the tournament scene, but I also want to try Darkrai Weezing. It's a bit more budget for players who are free to play. They open with Manaphy, and we're going to be watching them for this replay. Basically, I'm stuck on Darkrai EX here. I would need a Leaf to get it out. My goal with the Coughing Weezing deck is to put out Weezing as fast as possible in the active to poison, and then poke with the Darkrai. And then once we have enough energy on Darkrai for the Dark Prism, we want to Koga the Weezing out and then start sweeping with that. They open pretty luckily with Manaphy, Eevee, Palkia, and Pokecom, and they played their second Palkia there. They also hit 2 heads on Misty, which is super lucky, honestly. And then on our side, we have Not great draws. We just poke for 20 damage onto the Manaphy. And you'll see here, right? They are able to just get 2 Manaphy charges off, and that pretty much just wins the game for them there, right? They have it split onto 2 Palkia, so they don't even need the Vaporeon. Because if a Palkia uses a Dimensional Storm with the 4 water energy, it'll be left at 1. You can use the turn energy to swap out to another Pokemon after that. So we're going to poke down the Manaphy again. We have a Cyrus to kill it anytime. We also have Spiritomb to kill it. I'm also at 160 HP, so I know a Dimensional Storm's not going to one-shot me. But we get hit anyway with it. We finally get our Weezing, but it's a bit late. So at this point, what I should have done as the Darkrai player is I should have Cyrus first, and then attach the energy to kill off the Manaphy, and then hope that they put in a Palkia to poke it out for 80 damage. That's a misplay on my part. But at this point, they're too far ahead of tempo. I'm too slow on tempo. They Cyrus in the Weezing to one-shot the Weezing and then kill him off my Darkrai with Dimensional Storm, so we would have lost anyway. But yeah, a super lucky Misty can put you ahead so far, and then playing in slow decks that let you use a Manaphy twice is super good for you. You don't even need the Vaporeon if you have 2 Palkias. Finally, here's a replay of a Palkia mirror matchup. We opened the Palkia and Eevee, no side of Manaphy, so not very lucky for us. They opened with the Manaphy, at least, so they can start stacking next turn. We end up missing the Misty, so if we hit the Misty, that's really good for us. We can push onto Manaphy for 30 damage. That means they're only to be able to get 1 Manaphy off before the Manaphy drops. Unfortunately, we miss it. Of course, we could have Research, which would have been way better in hindsight, but we never know we're going to miss the 50% chance, right? Research would give us a chance to access Manaphy and Vaporeon, but we end up missing the Misty. So we gave for Palkia because we know Palkia is going to hit us for 150. They also hit Palkia and a Misty, and they hit 1 energy onto the Palkia. I flip Misty and I miss again, so this just shows you that's just how it is sometimes, you know? Just how it is. I have 1 energy, they have 4. They can wash out and play their first Dimensional Storm, and then I'm going to be dead to a Slash next turn. So at this point, I'm way too far behind. I finally hit my Misty, or my Manaphy there, but it is what it is. I missed 2 Misties in a row. Not even a single heads there, so it is what it is, really. That's a wrap for today's video. All in all, I definitely think Palkia EX is one of the top decks. In tournaments right now, it's definitely the Darkrai Magnezone for the amount of control it has, but Palkia has much bigger highs and also much lower lows, depending on your Misty and your draws. But even with all that variance, it's definitely a contender for top 3. It's also a lot more fun dropping 150s. Thanks so much for watching. I've been live every day on TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube, as well as doing daily deck lists on Shorts, Reels, and TikTok. We also just started a Discord this week. You can find images of all my deck lists, a trading hub, and queue up to battle with me while I'm on stream. Also, if you guys have any suggestions or decks you want to see me cover, let me know in the comments as well, and I'll get to them. Thanks so much for watching, have a good one, and climb on.